So good evening. It's great to see so many of you at an event again at MBA. And as Brad has mentioned several times, it's felt so great as this year has started to have so many of these events in person. Now, I was asked to say a few words this evening on the topic and concept of excellence and how we try and inculcate that at MBA. And this is not the easiest topic for an Englishman to talk about, not because we are incapable of excellence, but we don't always do very well at expressing it. Our gradation of achievement and positivity are a little more fatalistic than Americans might be used to. You may know, for instance, that one of the highest levels of praise an Englishman can give something is to say, that's not bad. That if you ask us how we're feeling, even if we're feeling great, we'll say, can't complain. And our way of letting you know we've had a really, really good day is to say, could have been worse. Actually, just a few more pointers. If you ever hear an Englishman come up to you and say, listen, I'm sorry, I know this is my fault, but they know it's your fault. And if they ever say something like, well, of course I have the greatest respect for you, well, as Southerners, just hear, bless your heart, when that expression. But thankfully, I've been here for nearly 20 years now, so I've managed to learn some more optimistic and upbeat language for occasions like this. Excellence is something that can be defined in many different ways, but in my view, we as a school need to think of it in terms of two categories: our excellence as an institution and the excellence we want our boys to achieve as gentlemen, scholars, and athletes. And as an institution, I feel we need to keep asking ourselves the question that Jimmy Carter used for his campaign biography at the start of his presidential run: why not the best? It was a question Carter himself had been asked nearly 30 years earlier by his first commanding officer in the Navy, and it was one he suggested all Americans should always be asking themselves about their nation's government and institutions. The idea being that Americans should never settle for pretty good or not bad. Instead, they should always be striving for improvement, always aspiring to that more perfect union. And this is how I think we should approach excellence as an institution, not as a static recognition of momentary achievement. Those were some excellent exam scores this year. That was an excellent result in the match this week. But as a dynamic process of self-evaluation. With the resources and human talent we have at our disposal as a school and a community, are we offering our boys the best possible educational and athletic experience they could possibly have? And if not, why not the best? That doesn't mean an endless process of self-flagellation or despair when things aren't working as well as they should, or a fear or denial of failure, but rather an eagerness to search for ways to improve, whether in response to disappointment or success. A culture of excellence includes both a teacher reflecting on a lesson plan that went horribly wrong in the classroom and trying to figure out, how do I make this work? Or a coach coming back to their office after winning a state championship and thinking, how do I make this team stronger next year? This is the mindset we want to encourage in everyone, from the administration down to the first-year teacher. And that is why you see it embedded in the strategic plan that we're working on, and why we always try and find new, creative, academic, extracurricular, and athletic opportunities to offer. Secondly, I want to turn to what I think excellence should mean in terms of the boys. I think there are three types of excellence we ought to be both celebrating and cajoling them towards as a school. And I'd like to use three of my own recent advisees to illustrate each kind. And yes, I realize that's biased, but I have the microphone for these few minutes. The first is traditional excellence, being by any objective measure the best at what you're doing. Sam Meacham embodied this type of excellence last year. Valedictorian of his class, part of the #1 debate team in the nation, editor of the student paper, and still always looking to get stronger and better at any activity he was engaged in. That made him a great example for others to look up to, and an excellent young man by any measure. But this is not the only model of excellence we should be focused on, and it would be sending a poor message to the boys if it was, because it would imply that excellence is only a standard that can be reached by a very few in any area of life, which is both discouraging and, I would say, inaccurate. Instead, we need to impress on them that there are other kinds of excellence. In particular, there is situational and personal excellence. Tim Buchanan is a great example of the former. On paper, his time at MBA seems fairly ordinary. Good, but not spectacular grades, a solid, but not exceptional athlete. But the context of his situation also matters. He entered MBA in the 9th grade as the only student from his prior school here on the campus. He was being raised by his extended family and having to help raise younger cousins and siblings as well along the way, so overall living a life very different from a typical MBA student. And we should further consider that he not only overcame the challenges he faced, but also carved out a college path for himself that allowed for him to develop his passion for creative design and art to the extent he's already founded a shoe design company while still in college. So while he may not have been at the absolute top of any list or ranking we may have, he absolutely embodies excellence and is a great example for others to look up to. And finally, there is personal excellence, which means that you've worked hard to push yourself to the peak of your powers, even if you are not objectively the best at what you do. And for this, I want to use Ben Alassi as an example. A member of our tennis program through all 6 years of his time at NBA, he faced a fierce battle for the final number 6 spot on our varsity team by his senior year. Earning that spot meant constant practice, overcoming setbacks, working to improve, but he did it, and that left him occupying that critical position heading into the state championship. His match became the crucial one. He had to win it for us to win the state title. And when he did make the winning volley to clinch that crucial point, he became the hero of the hour. Was he the best player on the team? No. Is he likely to play competitive tennis in the future? No. In fact, it would not have been inaccurate to say that measured by the range of talent on display over those few days, he was simply a good, average tennis player. And average is not excellent. But in fact, I would argue that the antonym of excellence is not average, it is mediocrity. And busting a gut to perform at the highest level you can and delivering a crucial result for your team in a high-pressure situation does not signify mediocrity. It signifies excellence. And so I would also hold Ben up as an example of excellence for others to emulate. Ultimately, the question we should always be asking our boys is not quite the same one as we should be asking ourselves. Rather than why not the best, we should be asking them why not your best. For if everyone is striving to do their best, then you have a culture of excellence. Even if there will still only be one valedictorian, one starting quarterback, and one student body president, everyone in that community has the potential to be excellent. So thank you for being here this evening and supporting our drive for excellence across all parts of the school. I hope that you enjoy the dinner we're about to serve, and just before we get ready to tuck into that, I would ask you to join me in welcoming a final example of both personal and institutional excellence for the night, and someone for whom I have the greatest respect, Robert Sawyer.